Hi, my name's Justin McClue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club Super Show. And what movies are we talking about today, Will?
I have already forgotten these two movies, but hang on, let me see if I can comb the recesses of my brain. Robert Rodriguez, Alita, Battle Angel, and the People's Republic of China's The Wandering Earth. That's
Only
what it was called, right?
Biggest box office success ever, I think, in China?
I think it's on track to be. Every year they get a new biggest box office success of all time.
But first, Battle Angel Alita. What is the movie about, Will?
Well, this was producer, writer James Cameron's long-cherished dream project. He was originally going to direct it, but he handed the reins over to another guy who makes movies mostly
just like James Cameron.
Studio bound, mostly on the computer, kind of a controlling guy. But unlike James Cameron, he doesn't usually make movies meticulously, and he doesn't spend decades doing it.
I was shocked when they announced that Robert Rodriguez was going to be directing Battle Angel Alita, because I know this was a project that Cameron has been holding on for decades, wanting the perfect moment to finally unleash it to his audience.
And clearly for James Cameron, I guess what it came down to was he's busy with all these Avatar sequels that I know we're all
Do these Avatar
excited
sequels
about.
actually exist? We have no proof of it.
When they come out, presumably they're going to blow your mind because he's been working round the clock on it.
But until then, we have this, I think it got $300 million.
$300 million.
Yes.
Jesus. A step up from what Robert Rodriguez's last couple of movies probably cost, which I think they cost bus fare.
That's what I've always loved about Robert Rodriguez, is that he prides himself. He made his career on making a film cheap by himself and for $7,000. And that ethos has kind of followed him.
That's kind of the selling point of him. He makes these movies cheaply, and he makes them with his family. His kids write them, and he gets his celebrity friends to come to his little Austin studio, and they have a movie-making party. And the results are movies like Machete and Machete Part 2 and Spy Kids Part 10, which look like ass.
Yeah,
they
a little
look
bit.
Bad, and they're sloppy, and sometimes they can be, I was going to say sometimes they can be sort of charming, but can they? I don't know.
I find them charming.
Way up in terms of budget for this one.
The story being about a cyborg that far off in space and gets picked up by Christoph Waltz, who plays a kindly doctor, and then this cyborg is actually a ass kicker.
But something I want to add is that, so Christoph Waltz regards Alita as his daughter, but also James Cameron wants to fuck Alita, and Christoph Waltz is James Cameron's, one of two James Cameron surrogates.
Okay.
And there's sort of a Humbert thing going on here.
So it's really Battle Angel Lolita.
Well,
it's right there in the title.
Yeah, actually. Okay, what do we know about James Cameron? We know that he likes badass warrior women, and we know that he likes machines more than humans.
He loves underwater.
He loves underwater, and that's where she goes.
Yes.
So all of these are all of James Cameron's fetishes.
No, you forgot one important thing. Giant eyes.
Yeah, giant eyes. But
he can't get off unless there's giant eyes.
I don't associate James Cameron with this sort of, jailbait Lolita thing. And I think that maybe either that's Robert Rodriguez's influence, or perhaps it's a concession to Hollywood, which, as we know, loves jailbait. I passed the time watching this movie contemplating the weird psychosexual thing going on between James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, and the material.
This is a film that I read that Robert Rodriguez got the gig because he read the script, and James Cameron went, "We can't crack this." And Robert Rodriguez went, "I have an idea, let me do it." And all I can think of is Robert Rodriguez went, "I'm going to add some rollerball into this." Because it's the one thing that sticks out, but it's also the structural thing that propels the story forward.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. The camera would be like, "Oh yeah, that's enough."
Robert Rodriguez is not somebody who normally, I think, worries too hard about cracking it.
No, I don't think so either.
I will say that, though this movie sort of bored me, and I thought the midsection really dragged, and I thought the characters weren't that interesting, and I thought the whole vision of the world was sort of half-baked and familiar from other dystopian movies. I think there were isolated scenes and images that I think looked very good on storyboards.
I mean, as much as we made fun of the giant eyes when the trailer came out, which are horrifying looking. They're fine in the movie. The actor Rose Salazar pulls it off. She's charming enough. She doesn't really have anything to do.
I didn't like looking at Alita, though.
You're different, unclean.
I didn't like that uncanny valley, jailbait thing. No.
And the action scenes themselves, like you said, they would look great on a storyboard. There's great moves, slow motion, looks nice in a trailer.
Cool character design. designs.
Yes.
There's that big hulking beast monster with big muscles, and you know the one I'm talking about.
Or there's like one of the robot assassins like is just a head with like spidery kind of body that's all blades.
I liked that one assassin who had a bunch of dogs. They were, like,
that was
mechanical
cool.
dogs.
Didn't pay off though. I kept waiting for it to come back and it didn't.
I don't think it all really cohered into an original vision. I would say that it had original images, but not an original overall vision.
I can't think of another movie from a big studio that had such an underwhelming climax where you're like, oh, that's it, I guess?
Yeah.
There's a love interest in this movie that the film is so disinterested in that, spoiler alert for this film, he has his head put on a robot body and then 2 scenes later is just killed unceremoniously. That I can only imagine this is reshoots where they're like, oh god, everybody hates this guy, let's get him out of this film.
Didn't it feel a bit like it's both uneventful and also feels like the first season of a TV show?
Yeah, it's 3 episodes of Cleopatra, you know, that Sunday, I think it was 25 on that Sam Raimi like action hour. Edited together and you picked it up on VHS at Blockbuster. When you got home, you're like, wait a minute, this is a bunch of shows edited together.
So, Alita 2?
I mean, I like Robert Rodriguez as an idea. I know you don't.
I don't care about Robert Rodriguez.
I know you don't. He runs a TV station now called El Rey, and he actually did a reality competition. He gave filmmakers, I think it was $7,000, and they all went and made their feature film, and they are airing it on his network. And he even actually shot himself a film for $7,000 as well that will be airing on his network. That's the kind of down and dirty filmmaking that I like, and that is not apparent in something like Battle Angel Lolita. And yes, I mean Lolita. It cost $200 million, but it still feels like it took place on one street. Like they had like a little backlot and they shot all the stuff there when they weren't in front of green screen.
Lolita Battle Angel has been a box office disappointment.
Shocking, coming out in February.
Elsewhere in the world, a movie is storming the box office. It is The Wandering Earth. And when we heard the premise of this movie, you know, we grew up on Hong Kong movies and we're
suckers.
Every Chinese New Year, like Charlie Brown kicking Lucy's football.
Every Chinese New Year? Don't you mean every Chinese film that we go and see?
But the Lunar New Year is when the really big ones come out, and we think, well, maybe there will be some signs of life. Because
wow, Stephen Chow and Choi Hark working together? How could this fail? And then we leave just sad and depressed.
Because the joyous anarchic spirit of the Hong Kong film industry has been swallowed whole by the soul-crushing bureaucracy of mainland China, where every film is fed through 10 censor boards.
And they don't even have face-to-face contact with these censor boards. They have to send in a letter and DVDs in the mail to get approved, and then they can continue with their production. That's some Orwellian shit right there.
Yeah, and rules will change arbitrarily. It's like, you can't show any crime on Chinese soil anymore.
Oh, God.
That's why all the Chinese movies take place in Africa now.
But thankfully, The Wandering Earth, which is based on a very famous Chinese science fiction novelist, it's away from all that, so they can do, I think, more crazier stuff than if it was set during modern day.
Well, the premise of the movie is world is going to be destroyed because the sun is going to explode, which is going to happen, unfortunately. I hate to be the bearer of bad
Spoiler
news
alert.
In a couple billion years. And mankind decides to deal with this problem by putting a bunch of rockets all over the Earth and literally moving the Earth from our solar system to another solar system 4 million light years away. Now, they say that the journey will take 4,000 years, and if you've taken your grade 10 science course, you'll know that the speed of light, 4 million light years, it takes 4 million years to travel there at the speed of light.
And they're not traveling the speed of light.
They're traveling very slowly.
So, Will from the get-go had his arms crossed, and he's like, well, I can't buy this at all.
But
plot holes.
It's a very silly premise.
That's what excites me. When I heard it was a disaster movie and I watched a trailer, I was like, no thanks. But when I heard that it turned Earth into a rocket ship that was going through space, I was like, I'm all in.
I didn't love this movie. I didn't hate it.
I liked it.
I was bored for most of the first 80 minutes, and then for the last 40 minutes, I kind of got up.
How is it a Chinese film that has really crummy action in it? The director, I don't know if he didn't have a good second unit person or he wanted to do it all himself, but it is not exciting. It's all over the place, and the film only really picks up when it's down to the wire. We have one final mission to save the Earth before it explodes, and all the pieces are in place, and it's more the inner cutting that makes it work. Very Eisensteinian, if you will.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another good communist filmmaker.
But, it's also a film that you know, there's characters, but they don't really matter because they're part of the collective.
Okay, well, this is the thing. I mean, a disaster movie, like, you know, your earthquakes, your airports, they succeed because...
I love how you mentioned two films, like, from the 70s, as opposed to, like, Independence Day.
Those movies are still the template, though.
Yeah, they are. You're right.
Okay, Independence Day, your Days After Tomorrows.
Wait, what's that movie?
Your
I don't remember that one.
2012s.
Everything directed by Roland Emmerich. Your Geostorms.
Your Godzilla 1998.
That's right.
These are movies that, if they succeed, it's because there are these 10 little melodramas and you get invested in like 10 characters and their cliched stories. And I did not feel that way with these plywood characters.
There's so many characters, too, and they keep being introduced.
Interchangeable, boring.
I love moments like a character sacrificing himself for the greater good and giving like a thumbs up as he goes down. But at that point, he's just an archetype, and he's not actually like a person that I followed his little mini drama or anything like that. It's also a film that's just packed with pop culture, like sci-fi detritus. Like anything that was popular over the last 30 years, there's like an evil Hal-like thing that looks exactly like Hal. They have kind of mech suits, like something like Live, Die, and Repeat. And by that I mean...
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah. They changed the title on the Blu-ray. So all this stuff is in there, and it's not really that exciting. Like if there was a little bit of martial arts in it, or they had like an action choreographer working, maybe those set pieces could get me more involved. But the huge mass of characters, not really fun action, and only a climax that really pays off, makes it a difficult film to like really get into.
Visually, I think it is by default the best looking Chinese blockbuster I've seen in about 5 years.
Chinese films look terrible.
They all look terrible. They have this terrible affectless sheen to them. This one had a couple of colors in it, so I'll give it that.
CGI still looks like PlayStation 2 cutscenes.
Simultaneously very expensive looking and very cheap looking, because it all looks like it's shot on one set with a lot of like, you know, when the roof caves in, they look like these big styrofoam blocks.
But
stuff.
I like that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I do too.
It's a film that almost feels, as it goes along, the director and the production team are like letting themselves be crazy. They're like, the character can fall 100 stories and catch his sister right before they crash to the ground. While the beginning is like, let's just play it safe and pretend to be the most Hollywood-like production we can be. This is going to lead to a bunch of Chinese disaster movies. And I feel like we'll probably skip them. Unless maybe someone like Wang Jing makes one.
Well, you know, Wang Jing is the only Chinese filmmaker who is still has a bit of that golden age flavor. Well, we saw Wang Jing's From Vegas to Macau Part 3, which is a bad film, but it's bad in a way familiar to me from the 90s.
It feels very Hong Kong-ish.
Yeah, just tacky and off the cuff.
I'm going to be honest that, like, when we saw that movie, we were like, ooh, bad. I wish we had From Vegas to Macau 3. Like, there's a scene where, like, some random Transformers are fighting. If the movie would just give us that, I'd be happy again. But nope. So if you enjoyed this talk, make sure to subscribe. We have a new episode of these new movie review videos that go up every 2 weeks. And if you don't want video, you're just tired of our faces,
put something over your screen.
Or you can listen to the podcast at importantcinemaclub.com. So until next week, I don't know what we're watching. We're still in February. Movies are doomed right now.
I hate movies.